Welcome back to Outside Views. Today we're delving again into a disturbing environmental crisis unfolding in Britain, one that starkly reveals the country's struggle with basic infrastructure and environmental management. And our topic is "A Stain on Britain: Sewage Contaminates Its Waterways and Seas." In recent years, Britain has faced increasing scrutiny over the alarming levels of sewage pollution in its rivers and coastal waters. We talked about this here as well. And this situation not only poses a severe threat to the environment, but is now significantly affecting businesses, local communities, tourism, and biodiversity. And let's start by looking at Lyme Bay in southern England. Offshore, far from visible pollution, lies Europe's largest offshore mussel farm. Operated by the Holmyard family, this farm seemed ideally placed, far enough from the mainland to avoid Britain's ongoing sewage contamination. Yet, despite its remote location, even this business isn't safe from harmful bacteria such as E. coli, driven by Britain's failing sewage infrastructure. And this contamination has led to export bans to the EU, crippling their ability to operate effectively. Sarah Homeyard, the sales manager, described the situation bluntly, stating, "It's criminal that they are allowed to dump what they dump in the seas and get away with it." The experience of the Homeyards underscores a wider crisis. The broader economic impact of sewage pollution extends far beyond shellfish farming. It affects tourism, discourages investment, delays construction projects, and harms Britain's overall economic recovery, at a time when the government urgently seeks growth. And recent data reveals the alarming extent of the problem. In 2023 alone, water companies across England discharged sewage into rivers and seas for a shocking 3.6 million hours. And these spills contaminate natural habitats, spread litter such as sanitary products, damage ecosystems, and visibly pollute beaches. And it's little wonder then that this has sparked widespread outrage, driving thousands of people to protest and demanding governmental and industry accountability. But how did this crisis escalate so severely? The root lies in Britain's aging sewage infrastructure. Britain's sewers combine rainwater and wastewater. During heavy rains, water companies regularly spill sewage into waterways to prevent infrastructure overload. However, water companies have increasingly used this as a frequent solution rather than an emergency measure. And one striking example is South West Water. In 2023, the single provider discharged sewage for an astonishing 530,733 hours. That's an 83% increase from the previous year. Such systemic failures indicate deep neglect, prioritizing dividends over infrastructure improvements. Indeed, water companies in England and Wales have collectively paid £53 billion in dividends since privatization, all while amassing significant debt. Critics argue this financial mismanagement highlights companies' prioritization of profits at the expense of public health and, of course, environmental safety. Meanwhile, the consequences are severe and wide-ranging. And let's return briefly to the Homeyards mussel farm. Before Brexit, the UK, of course, could freely export shellfish to the EU for purification. But now, due to stricter post-Brexit regulations, only purified shellfish or those harvested from the cleanest waters can enter the European market. Pollution has thus decimated mussel farming regions like North Wales, once vital for British exports. And James Green, an oyster farmer from Whitstable, has similarly suffered. Once exporting half his produce internationally, Green now sells solely domestically due to water quality and Brexit-related complications. And Southern Water, his local supplier, faced a massive fine of £90 million in 2021 for sewage dumping, severely impacting businesses like his without compensation. Green's frustration highlights the severe consequences of Britain's failing infrastructure, and he asks, can you wait for the changes to kick in 5, 6, 7 years' time? Meanwhile, environmental campaigners have intensified efforts. Groups such as Windrush Against Sewage Pollution have shifted strategies, opposing housing development to pressure the government into urgent infrastructure reforms. And their message is clear. Britain's sewage problem isn't just ecological. It's a symptom of broader infrastructure neglect impacting the nation's entire economy. And tourism also suffers significantly. Alistair Handyside of the South West Tourism Alliance lamented how reports of sewage spills have damaged the reputation of popular tourist spots, making Britain's beaches less attractive to visitors. And the situation has driven communities and businesses alike to despair. Environmental activists like Sally Bird-Jones from SOS Whitstable have organized local protests demanding legislative change and stronger governmental oversight. And John Reeve from Surfers Against Sewage similarly fights for systemic improvements, emphasizing that collective community action is essential for long-term change. Water companies claim significant investment has occurred since privatization, citing population growth and climate change as exacerbating challenges. Yet the public remains skeptical. The water regulator Ofwat has acknowledged customer frustration, proposing substantial bill increases over the next 5 years to fund desperately needed infrastructure improvements. However, these proposals have been met with controversy, given the history of dividends prioritized over essential infrastructure. Furthermore, construction projects across Britain have faced delays due to sewage issues. The Environment Agency has repeatedly objected to new developments, citing existing infrastructure inadequacies. And these objections add layers of complexity, delay housing projects, and impede broader economic goals, undermining government initiatives to boost housing and infrastructure growth. Beyond economic and infrastructural implications, the environmental costs remain stark. Pollution has severely impacted Britain's biodiversity, exemplified by declining salmon stocks, which the Environment Agency attributes directly to pollution and habitat degradation. Ironically, this pollution has occurred precisely in the habitats the home yard sought to avoid, highlighting how pervasive and damaging the crisis has become. Ultimately, Britain faces a crossroads. Resolving the sewage crisis requires urgent governmental action, stronger regulatory frameworks, and significant industry reform. If unaddressed, this ongoing contamination risks permanent economic damage, ecological devastation, and long-term public health consequences. The Home Yards experience illustrates broader systemic failures, exposing how crucial effective governance and responsible corporate management are to Britain's future. So in conclusion, the sewage contamination crisis stands as a severe indictment of Britain's infrastructure neglect, underscoring the necessity of immediate, decisive action to safeguard both its economy and environment. So thank you for watching Outside Views. Please like, subscribe, and share your comments. I deeply value your insights on this critical topic. And until next time, stay informed and always keep looking beyond the headlines. And the next video is right here in the end screen.